Democrats and Republicans seem to agree on, McConnell and Pelosi, even in some cases Fox News and CNN, will tell you that it's your patriotic duty to defend democracy in Ukraine. Democracy. What does democracy mean? Because what's happening in Ukraine is the banning of opposition political parties, the consolidation of media into a state media source, and even the seizure of funds, property, and assets from the banned political parties. Within the last week, Zelensky signed this new political party ban legislation, and since nobody's talking about it, I think it's your right to know that what's going on in Ukraine, no matter how much you love and support them, and no matter how much you distrust Russia, that's fine. That's not what I'm trying to tell people. But the idea that we're protecting democracy there is one of the biggest farces that is just being believed because, one, they're making it near impossible to counter, and two, if you tell the truth about it, you run the risk of hacks in both parties falsely smearing you as something you're not. We're going to cover that today, and also Biden ramping up troops in an area that Trump de-escalated it, Somalia. That's on the plate as well. The show starts now. Hope you... What's going on, everybody? I have a good show for you today. Hopefully you enjoy. And we're going to talk about democracy, what that word means to you, what it means to me. Obviously, it has a dictionary definition, but to me, democracy means, government of the people. I certainly think about a fair and free election in a democracy, not like a dictatorship or an authoritarian. These are things that are the opposite of democracy. Democracy means people vote and pick somebody they like. Authoritarianism or dictatorship means you don't really get to choose. What's going on in Ukraine, there's going to be people that misconstrue this, and this is nothing new. During the Iraq war, Afghanistan war, the left wing and the right wing, to be fair, a lot of neocons, as people would call them, but Republicans would say, oh, if you don't support this war, you must be working with the terrorists, right? So this is the same Dan Crenshaw style, Republican, Mark Levin style. They'll do the same thing today. Oh, if you don't agree with everything I say all the time, then you're a Kremlin puppet. It's like, that's what happened during the Middle East. We're going over there to fight for democracy, signing the Patriot Act, trillions of dollars being dumped into the Middle East. Where did that go? Who was rebuilding? Was it a slush fund, or did we really build schools? Is that what we were doing over there? I don't know. 20 years after that war, I think most, even Republicans and Democrats, would be like, yeah, that was a failure. But if you were to say before we went there that, hey, this might not be the best idea for America or anybody, they would try to smear you as you're a terrorist. Oh, you must want to work with them. So this same sort of dynamic is happening with Russia and Ukraine. If you don't just jumpsuit with the narrative, they're trying to act like you work with Putin or you believe his propaganda. And, it's just utter nonsense. But I'm going to play this clip right now because I've been doing some research. And in the last couple of days, Zelensky has signed legislation to ban opposition political parties. And one of the crazier parts of the thing is that the Ukrainian news station, this is where I got this from Ukrainian news, I'm about to show you, they're admitting that they may be seizing property, finances, just the state is going to just steal everything from the opposition political party. Does this sound like democracy to you? Let's take a listen. This news got whispered last week, but it just happened in the last few days. Zelensky signs law banning pro-Russian parties. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has signed law number 7172-1 on the introduction of amendments to certain legislative acts of Ukraine regarding a ban on the activity of political parties. And by the way, this is coming from Ukraine-Inform, which is the national news agency of Ukraine. In that article, they admit it is expected that if a party is banned by the court, its property, funds, and other assets become the property of the state. So not only are they banning political parties, not only are they combining all national TV channels into state media to combat alleged misinformation, but they are also seizing assets, properties, and funds of those that they ban. While Democrats and Republicans send tens of billions of dollars to this country, telling you that the reason they're doing it is to fight for democracy. It's the number one issue, says Mitch McConnell, saving democracy in Ukraine. Does this sound like democracy where the state is allowed to pretty much steal the next election, consolidate all media, seize your property and funds if you disagree? Or does that sound more like authoritarianism, dictatorship, and communism? And here's what I'll start by saying. I understand if people are going to make the point of, well, we have to do this, desperate times equal desperate measures. Just Tell the truth. That's all I'm asking. This is not, when it comes to political philosophy, this is not democracy, okay? Just like we didn't do it in the Middle East, we're not going to Ukraine for democracy, okay? There is no democracy there anymore, okay? They've banned 11 political parties. They're now seizing property and putting it into the hands of the state of any political party that they ban. People might act like that's normal, but it's actually not normal. Before he started banning political parties and consolidating the state media, the dude is a dictator, okay? There is no democracy in Ukraine. There's a dictator. He's an authoritarian. He's potentially a communist at this point, consolidating everything into the hands of the state. And it's probably even less fair there than it is in Russia. I'm not saying it's better or worse. I'm just saying there is no democracy in Ukraine. Okay, so all I'm asking from McConnell, Pelosi, I know it's too much to ask because they're not truth tellers. But it's like, just don't lie and say that you're protecting democracy in Ukraine. Like, that's why we're there, because there is no democracy there. Nobody's even pretending that there's democracy there. So just tell the truth about that. Before Zelensky banned all the opposition political parties, I follow election betting odds and just try to see where it's at. I follow Brazilian ones, American ones. That's where I find the more accurate polls, because it's not really a poll. It's more like what's really happening. So before that happened, Zelensky had almost a 50-50 chance of losing the next election. He actually had a better chance, a worse chance than, I would say Democrats are massive favorites to lose the Senate and the House. And Zelensky was higher, he had a bigger chance of losing the next election than Democrats did winning. I'm sorry, I messed up what I'm saying, but you get what I'm saying. He had a very high chance of not winning the next election by democracy, right? People there voting. There's Ukrainians there. There's some Russians there. They have a shared history, so I'm not trying to interfere or anything, but this idea that, well, we can just ban the political party because they feel a way favorable to that. They could do that in America too. They could say, well, the Republican Party is a pro-Russia party. Matt Gaetz is pro-Russia. Marjorie, is this starting to ring a bell to people in America? Because they actually did that to Donald Trump. Oh, if you vote for Bernie Sanders over Hillary Clinton, you're a Russian Kremlin agent. And everyone's like, what? What does this have to do with Russia? I just like Bernie more than Hillary. And then it's like, well, I like Trump more than Hillary. Oh, well, who did the Russia thing? Oh, Russia hacked the election. Russia did this. Russia did that. You're a Russian. So they're already doing that here. Imagine if they could do what Zelensky did and say, well, Marjorie Taylor Greene is pro-Russia because she doesn't want to start World War III and she doesn't want to expand NATO and she doesn't want to, get involved in another proxy war. So that means that she must be pro-Russia, even though she's probably not. And that means because she's pro-Russia, we can ban her political party. And that means because we banned her political party, we could seize all her assets in the hands of the state. That's what they're doing in Ukraine. A country that has a shared history with Russia, parts of it that are like literally attached to Russia that they've been fighting over. Now they just ban the next election. There is no democracy in Ukraine. None. I don't care if Crenshaw says there is, Fox News, anybody. It doesn't even really matter. I mean, it's a total dictatorship. It's less free than America. It's probably even less free than Russia at this point. And there's no sense in pretending that we're fighting for democracy in Ukraine. That's clearly not the reason that we're fighting there. If we can come up with another reason, that would be much preferred, and just be honest about it. Be like, listen, we don't like Putin, and we want to basically create a puppet, NATO state right next to him to keep harassing him and tell him that, we have a liberal world order, as Joe Biden calls it. He's like, it's a liberal world order. We're established. We get it. Putin doesn't play along with all of the games that you guys are doing. He's not like one of these guys who just follow suit. He's no Macron, Merkel, he's not a Biden. He's this guy that's like a total renegade. It's cold out there. They do their own thing. We get, just be honest about it. Don't tell us that we're going there for democracy, because I don't know that anybody believes that. I guess people probably do, but I'm just letting you know. Once again, the clip, if you missed it, you could just rewind it when it's over. He's banned around 11 political parties. The state of Ukraine that now Zelensky controls is going to seize the property, goods, everything, like a total communist of the banned political party. And anybody that thinks that that's okay over there, I mean, you can make the case for authoritarianism and a dictatorship if you want. I'm not going to stop anybody. I think everybody's allowed to have an opinion, no matter how much I think it's egregious. But like, if you're making the excuse for authoritarianism, communism, and a dictatorship, don't be surprised when it comes to America, because the same excuses they use there, people are like, well, he's at war. It's like, I mean, we could say that we're at war. We're at war. You know what I'm saying? We send troops to Afghanistan, we're at war. You know, some people, right-wingers, would say that we're at war because we're being invaded from the southern border. You know, there's hundreds of thousands of people coming across the border. So it's like we could easily use that justification to do that, except it would shatter our whole democracy in America. And I don't think either side really wants to do that quite yet. Although I will say, when it comes to free and fair elections, the other irony of going over to Ukraine to save democracy is you have both parties within the last 5 years didn't even agree with the election results. And you could blame Trump supporters all you want and January 6th and try to make it act like it was like September 11th when it wasn't. But in general, we all remember 2016 when Donald Trump won the election, and the real, election questioners were not Trump supporters at the time. It was the Hillary Clinton brigade of blue check mark Democrat journalists. I mean, do they not remember that they were saying that the election was illegitimate, the election was stolen, the election was rigged? That's what they were saying for 3 years. They threw a fit in the same way Trump supporters are throwing a fit now. It's a little bit of a different fit, but the point I'm trying to get to is, like, Democrats didn't even agree with the election results for 4 years. Now you have a majority of, I would say, Trump supporters and conservatives don't agree with the election results. So our own democracy in America is in question by both sides of the political landscape. And then we somehow are able to convince people, or maybe not, maybe they don't even need to convince people anymore. Maybe that's what it is. It's like a lockdown. It's like, yeah, we're doing this. They don't even need your support. They're like, oh, you think we have a democracy here? Well, you either vote for your Zelensky and, McConnell, or Zelensky and Pelosi. That's your democracy, okay? You either get Operation Warp Speed Trump or you get Biden. And it's like, yeah, you could pick one. We'll give you an option, but you're still getting a lockdown. You can pick one, but you're still getting Pfizer and Moderna shoved down your throat. You could choose, but, are you really? So I think they've just kind of gotten cocky where they know it's like, yeah, you can complain all you want about Ukraine, but we'll just ban you, We'll just do what they're doing over there. We'll just call you a Russian propagandist when you tell the truth. And, we'll say that you shouldn't have a voice in our. So I think they're just getting cocky. It's not even like, people even fully agree with this type of stuff. It's just like, what can you really do when both parties are flying over there and doling out your money? The best thing you could do is try to vote for the new age Republican people like the Marjorie Taylor Greene, the Matt Gaetz, anybody who voted no against that. I think there were 50 of them. That's your best shot of really making a difference, because they know that they have two parties completely swallowed up by now. Rand Paul, was he the only one who said, and by the way, guys, Rand Paul, it's going to get misconstrued because, he has every right to not support sending money over there, but Rand Paul was trying to say he wants an inspector general report to basically go over and audit where this money is going. $40 billion, I think $8 billion is going to their economy. What does that mean? Because if Joe Biden passes a bill and says it's going to our economy, like, am I getting it? Are the stocks going to go up? What does that even mean? When they tried to do that bill, now Bezos is talking trash about it because it's that bad that even he's getting involved. It's like, just because they say they're spending money to fix an economy doesn't mean I'm getting it or you're getting it or any electrician's getting it. Like, roads are being built. So Rand Paul is simply asking, if we're going to send that much money over to Ukraine, why don't we have a bipartisan inspector general report where the money's going? And you see how pissed off they're getting. They're like, how dare you slow this money down? $40 billion, I think we have the right to know where it's going, but the more you know where the money's going, the less they even want to send it in the first place, probably, because if you're paying attention to what they're doing, you're going to realize that we're getting absolutely robbed blind. And, when it comes to a foreign country, I know Sri Lanka is like mad right now. It's like a madhouse. No one's talking about Sri Lanka. Why? Because there's no money to be made there. There's no big scheme where there can, both parties can just rub you dry, or rob you dry, rather. Hopefully they don't rub us dry. That's disgusting. But you get what I'm saying. It's like no one's talking about Sri Lanka because it's not glorious enough to get our attention. But that's my take with Sri Lanka, is like, I don't really know what's going on over there. It seems like a corrupt country. and I wish them the best. That's how I feel about Ukraine and Russia. Like Russia is Russia. It's always been Russia. I'm not going to Russia expecting like it's going to be Florida. It's Russia. It's cold. They got a different culture. Ukraine, it's next to Russia. I know it's a corrupt country, but there's a lot of corrupt countries. No disrespect to the people there, but it's like I feel this way about Sri Lanka, but nobody says I'm working for the other side. I don't even know who the other side is in Sri Lanka. It's the same thing with the Somalia situation. Now Biden's ramping up troops in Somalia again. Trump took the troops away. Biden's bringing them back. If I say that and I'm an anti-interventionist in Somalia, no one's going to accuse me of being a terrorist anymore. Probably 10 years ago they would have. So it's the same thing with Ukraine. It's like people are acting like I have to pretend like Zelensky's a hero and he's like a democracy savior. Not only is he not a hero in my opinion, but he's literally an authoritarian dictator. Like I'm not even saying that as a smear. On record, if you ban 11 political parties and go from like a 50-50 favorite to win the election to a landslide victory because there is going to be no fair election because you just took it away, you're not a democracy guy anymore. He's a straight up dictator. So, this idea that I have to act like he's amazing, he's not. I mean, I like Joe Biden. I'm sorry, I like America. I don't like Joe Biden. I'm saying I like America, but I don't have to like Joe Biden. Oh, Joe Biden's no, he's a garbage president in my opinion. Excuse my error. But it's like people saying, oh, if you don't like Joe Biden, then you're not a true American. Or, it's like I'm an American citizen, but I don't even like my own president, let alone you're telling me I have to like this puppet liar in a foreign country. I like Zelensky about as much as I like CNN. I actually, unironically, I trust CNN more than I trust Zelensky. That's true. CNN is like a 1 out of 100 trustworthy rating on my book, but I would go to CNN.com for some honest journalism before I would ever listen to a Zelensky speech and believe a word he said. Like that's how dishonest I think that guy is based on my evidence, research, and listening to him. So I'm not going to be told that I have to like a dictator in a foreign country who's just sucking our country dry, sucking Europe dry, and ruining the economies all over the place so he could try to rebuild his own with a totally non-existent democracy. It's an absolute joke. And that doesn't mean I trust or like Putin or Russia, but I have no doubt in my mind, and this is my personal opinion, but I have no doubt in my mind the problem with Putin, with the liberal world order Biden people, that are so mad at him and all these NATO types. If he was Stalin or Lenin, if he was like an evil, really messed up leader, even worse than he is, they would be totally fine with it. So, all these Crenshaw and Levin types that think they're achieving something, you're not achieving anything. They all try their hardest to regime change Putin, and they'll try to replace him with a Macron or a Merkel or a Biden or a Lenin or a Stalin, one of these people who will be okay with global communism and totally turn their backs on the Russian people. Say what you want about Putin. I'm not Russian, so it doesn't bother me or make me feel good, but it's like he actually likes the people of his country, which is a total threat to this entire liberal world order we have in the West, where every world leader that we have literally hates our guts and doesn't even care if we exist in the first place. So, have no doubt that that's what they're trying to replace Putin with, not this glorious figure that's going to save the country like, Donald Trump in the eyes of a Republican. They're going to replace him with a Lenin or a Stalin and somebody who will literally have no problem if tens of millions of people get slaughtered, for the greater good of global communism. And that's who Zelensky is as well, sacrificing his own people, sacrificing Europe, sacrificing us, sacrificing democracy for what? What's gonna be the final conclusion over there? I don't know. I wish him luck, just like I wish a lot of places in the world luck. A lot of corruption in South America, a lot of corruption in the Middle East, a lot of corruption in America that we have to deal with. But I do not accept this idea that, we are saving democracy in Ukraine. That is the biggest lie that's being told by literally everyone all the time. And I just proved that it's a massive lie. So if you want to say you're doing something else over there, that's fine. But saving democracy that literally doesn't even exist in Ukraine anymore, you're not doing that. And nobody believes it. So appreciate y'all. God bless you. I'm going to put a few things on the screen, and I apologize for my slight error. I'm still a little bit under the weather. I'm almost fully healed, but not quite. Appreciate y'all. It's been very tough for me to even put these together the last week. Someone said, America has a lot of pain to go through. God has turned his back and walked away from the people. I agree with that. I mean, I think America was a thriving country when it was a godly country. And now that we've rejected God and morals, we're failing. And I want to say this too. I don't want to go on a whole rant because I'm going to keep this under 30 minutes. But, with that mass shooting and all this sort of stuff going on, I want to probably do a whole stream about it when I have my wind under me. But it's like this country, I said it the other day, is facing a huge moral issue. And I hate to really say, because there's a lot of people on every side of politics, every racial group. There's good and evil people. There are people who are losing it and people who are righteous people. But in general, and it sucks to really feel this way, but nobody is more evil, in my opinion, than the mainstream media. They egg on the white community. They egg on the black community. They do nothing for either side. They pin everybody against each other. They just paint this entire disgusting culture. They literally do the opposite of what's right and what's moral and what's just. They are perverting gender, perverting sexuality. Everything that you could want normal, the media is literally twisting, screwing over both people. And then they sit there and lie about everything. So when a tragedy really happens, how do you get to the core of it and stop it? That's not what the media does. The media is like, how can I exploit this? How can I make this look good for us for the November elections? How can I raise money off this? How can we push a political and social agenda? How can we hurt more people? How can we blame Tucker Carlson? It's like they're not even trying to really accurately look at okay, what did this person do? Why did it happen? And how do we prevent another one? They're not even trying. It's like a wind-up doll. They're trying to make this happen all over the place. It's like they're setting mines all over the country, everywhere, all the time, and just being like, fight. And then they sit back and act like they're trying to help us. So it's hard to even process how evil they are. And I want to say this because it's like, every day, I wake up and I'll log into social media, and you just have some of the most evil people lying. I'm past the point of even trying to argue with them, and it's not because I can't debate or I'm not interested in it, but I've written these people off as just wicked deceivers. They're not interested in the truth. They're not interested in discussion. They're not interested in solving the problem. They're not interested in healing Black America. They're not interested in healing conservative America. They're not interested in giving all ethnic groups a fair shake and being honest about their pains and their sufferings, etc. They're not willing to do any of that. So why even communicate with such devils? Why even play along with them? Why should I even entertain the sick little games they're playing? Because it's not working. It's like this cycle where they're not even trying to learn. And I think that's the difference between me and some Republicans. And I'm not even saying they're great. A lot of these Republicans are great people, but it's like they're always trying to justify what the media and what these Democrats are doing. And it's like they're not operating under logic or morality. So you're going to constantly struggle trying to figure out why they lie so much about everything, because that's just what they do. So I don't know at what point. I know for work, a lot of people have to engage with them, and a lot of people have to counter their narrative. I definitely make news. I'm not going to stop, but it's like I'm almost just done playing in their little devil's playground, because everything they do is a total lie. And I find when there's a tragedy, and all tragedies are harsh and terrible, and I don't after a shooting is the worst Twitter, because everybody's comparing it, it's it's the worst of the worst comes out. Rolling Stone lies, the most evil things just come out, and you're just like, what a disgrace. But in general, when a tragedy happens that goes against the left-wing narrative, they don't even cover it, right? And I'm not saying that this is right, it's not, but from a game perspective, they're playing this long game where they're like, we're just going to pretend like it doesn't exist. And that's the game the Democrats play. If something bad happens outside their narrative, or say every weekend in a lot of these cities, there's just murders, children being murdered, it doesn't fit their social, racial, political narrative, so they ignore it. They don't care if 10,000 people die, 100,000 people die, 10 million people die. They will literally act as if it doesn't even happen, and because they have the power of the press, they're able to do that. But then here's the thing. When a narrative does sadly go in their favor of what they're trying to push, they will cover it for 3 years as if it's the only thing that's ever happened ever. And then Republicans will start covering it as well. So I think, Republicans' kind heart, in my opinion, and I'm not saying they're perfect, but I'm just saying the fact that they're way more moral people than Democrats on average in the media it almost works against them, because Democrats use this ignore tactic like they did to Ron Paul. Like, what if we just pretended like he doesn't even exist, right? That's what they did to Ron Paul. It's like with Trump, they messed up and just covered him all the time. But it's like with Ron Paul, it's like, let's just pretend like he's a breeze in the wind and he'll go away. And that was a better strategy. That's what they do with mass killings that don't go in their favor. And then they do kind of just go away. I mean, there's going to be people on the right wing who keep bringing it up, etc. But that's kind of their strategy. Is like Democrats are masterful ignorers when something doesn't go their way. And Republicans always cover both sides because I think they're a little bit more honorable. So they're willing to be like, yeah, that's wrong and that's wrong. But the Democrats will be like, that's wrong and I don't even know what you're talking about. We don't even know what you're talking about. So it's like, it's evil what they're doing, but this is why socially and politically they kind of win even when they lose, as far as like the culture shifting in their direction, is because they're just like masterful ignorers of narratives that go against their favor. Like they will literally block it out as if it's not even in existence. And I think Republicans cover both. Sorry, hold on a second. They just like kicked me off my own stream. But, Republicans will cover it and be like, that and that is messed up. And we don't justify that, but that's also messed up. And like Democrats will just be like, la, 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 you're racist. La, 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 la. This is all that's happening. And they're making both sides of the equation worse. Like when it comes to racial tensions, political tensions, I would say either they're purposely exploiting both sides for their own agenda, or they're just like out of control psychopaths who have no idea how to really stop what's going on. So I don't know if they've just lost it or this is part of their political scheme, but it definitely gives them an advantage in culture when they just are able to act like these other things don't exist. But just something I've been thinking about. So I might come back and like fully explain my thoughts on that at a different time, but this is the show for today. Zelensky, I just wanted to bring it to the attention. People can make the point for why this is acceptable, but I would say be very careful with doing that, because in America, there may be a time where we get invaded on the southern border if we haven't already. And, imagine if Donald Trump or Joe Biden can just say, oh my gosh, we're at war. I got to ban all the alternate political parties and anybody who disagrees with my foreign policy agenda. We need to ban them. I mean, you got to understand when it comes to foreign countries, whether it's Ukraine, Russia, Somalia, Yemen, Israel, Palestine. I mean, this is why I go so hard at this anti-Israel speech laws that Republicans pass. I want people to be able to have a perspective on it. I don't have to agree with someone's opinion on the Israel-Palestine conflict, but in America, I will agree with I agree with your ability to disagree with me, because when it comes to Israel-Palestine, I can't say I'm the most knowledgeable on that topic, but I believe both sides should be able to have a fair, not literally fight, but you get what I'm saying, conversation about it. And in Ukraine, it's like because they had a conflict, now there is no communication. They're seizing property and stealing stuff from people who disagree with them in a country where the next election was probably going to be pretty close to 50-50. So it's not like if he's so popular like they say he is, then why does he have to ban 11 political parties? Shouldn't he have won an election in a landslide? If, Russia's so evil and they're invading and hurting all these Ukrainians, shouldn't Zelensky be able to win the next election flawlessly, like by 90% of the vote? Well, no, he was probably going to lose or tie or come really close. So something is not some part of the narrative is not adding up. And I know what part of that narrative is not adding up because I listen to both sides, and there's a real specific mission that Putin was trying to do. I'm not saying it's right, but I don't believe he was trying to take over the whole country like the West. There's certain regions with Russian people there and a shared history and conflicts that have been going on for 10 years. And he said, I want that, and that's all. And I want a buffer zone. He wasn't going to Kiev. That's why Zelensky and freaking Pelosi can fly over there and it looks cleaner than the south side of Chicago because, he wasn't trying to take over the whole country. But in general, it's like, regardless of what's happening there, why can they not have a fair election? So I would say two things before I leave. One, there is no democracy in Ukraine. I would say that's like not even debatable. Everything's debatable. I'm not censoring people who disagree with me. I'm just saying, if you look at what's going on there, banning 11 political parties, that's not democracy. Consolidating the state media, all the media together, that's not democracy. And seizing the property and putting it into the hands of the state of political parties that you ban, that's certainly not democracy. That's straight up communism and dictatorship. And that's what's going on in Ukraine. So that's happening. And to the people who would say, well, it's a time of war, so they need to take desperate measures, my question would be, why couldn't he win a fair election? If it's so unpopular what Putin's doing and it's so popular what Zelensky's doing, why couldn't he win an election? He should have had an easier time than the last election. And then also I would say, be very careful what you wish for to Westerners that say, well, anomaly, I literally had a left-winger. He's a total moron, clearly. But he was saying he would support that in America if we had the same situation or we had a war. And I asked him, because he was a left-winger, I said, his name was Mitch. I'm like, Mitch, if Donald Trump was president and somebody invaded us on the southern border, you would allow Donald Trump to ban 11 political parties? And he's like, yeah, I'd support it. I'm like, if you hate Trump so much, why would you support him banning other parties? I wouldn't even support that, So it's like, be very careful what you wish for. If you say, well, if there's a conflict or a war or any sort of skirmish at the border, I support the democracy being completely liquidated for a dictatorship. It's like, if you support that, whether you're left wing or right wing, you are pretty much giving Trump or Biden or whoever else becomes the president the power to completely dissolve the American political system because of a conflict. That's never happened. We've been at war. We've been in World War I, World War II. They've never deleted the voting process because we've been at war. That's not how a democracy works. I mean, literally this country will fail if that ever happens here. So to the people that are like, well, that's just how it is over there, it's like, that's how they would want it here too, I'm sure. God bless you guys. God bless your family. God bless America. God bless the world. I just want to say two things before I leave. Thank you for watching. Feel free to share this if you think it was informative or interesting. I apologize for messing up. I said I liked Biden. I meant to say I don't like Biden, but I don't want to be called anti-American because I don't like Biden. That's the same thing as being called like anti-Ukraine if you don't like Zelensky. It's like, I don't like Nancy Pelosi, sue me, but literally don't sue me though. God bless hats, folks. We got pink hats, baby blue hats. I appreciate it so much. It's what's been able to really keep this going, especially with all the nonsense going on recently. And I just wanted to put up real quick too, patreon.com/raretalk. I can't really find it, so I'll just leave this up. Thanks to everybody buying hats, shirts, etc. Appreciate your support. It's all made in the US, and it's my only sponsor. It's why I'm able to do and say whatever I want at this point. And that's what it is. I might come live and talk about other stuff. So appreciate you guys, and feel free to share or listen on podcasts if you'd like. Thank you.